again. My name is Sam Robinson, and this is the Gnostic Syncretist Podcast. Thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you for being here. All are welcome. So today, or tonight, I would like to go over several things related to the sacred mystery school traditions and their cosmology, which is foundational and fundamental to understanding their scheme and superstructure of reality at all, and is largely delineated in Helena Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine as a major source, as well as other books. But that one probably gives the greatest metaphysical breakdown in history of the manifestation of the universe from a cosmic absolute principle in an unconditioned state that exists. I mean, it's bar none the most complex, insane metaphysical explanation of how the universe comes into being all the way down to us. So many people will not necessarily be at all familiar with theosophical concepts and theosophical cosmology, or what she would just call, Blavatsky, the sacred mystery school traditions, occult cosmology, the cosmology of the hidden, down to the not hidden, to the material plane. And it's very vast, it's very complicated, yet I'm going to simplify it and try to explain it in a way that maybe people will truly be able to understand. And I don't know, in a better way than could be done using her book, because I mean it's hundreds of pages. So one of the fundamental tenets and foundational axioms and concepts in occult cosmology and occult metaphysics is the idea, which is opposed to an esoteric, extra-cosmic God who is separate from creation entirely. Oh, he interacts with it. He communicates to you. He has a relationship with you, supposedly. And at the same time is not in it. He's apart from it. It's out there somewhere. He's outside the earth, outside your reality. He created your reality, but he's not in the reality. Well, in the esoteric mystery schools and the occult cosmology, that's not at all what they teach. They teach a very different doctrine, one that is of an intra-cosmic deity. One, though, so to speak, sort of monotheistic, is really a fusion of two types, monotheism and polytheism or pantheism. It is a monotheistic pantheism, some have called it, which is a concept of a singular, omnipotent, absolute source of reality that is the essence of all things in reality, and is, so to speak, is reality. You are within the deity. You are, as they say in the Bible, you live and move and have your being in the Lord, in God. And I mean, take that literally for what it's worth. From that one passage, most of the Bible shouldn't be taken literally, but and that one we'll give them that. We live and move and have our being in the deity. The deity is everything. It is the cosmos. It is the universe. We are inside of its being, which is referred to partly as emanationism in traditions like the Kabbalah or Gnosticism, ancient Gnosticism, whether it's Valentinian or Basildian or, Sethian, whatever it is. And in the old pagan mystery school traditions, the same thing. The God is the reality. I mean, it's still God at the same time. It's seemingly a paradox. It is the one, the absolute, while also the world and yourself. You are a reflection of the deity. You are a reflection of the absolute's essence. You not a piece of it. not a division off of it, not separated from it. You are a reflected essence of it. Your divine spark, your divine monadic ego that never perishes and is immortal, is a reflection of this, so to speak, the super cosmic ego of the deity, that great spiritual fire of the cosmos that it unites it all together, and at the same time has itself dispersed into all the pieces without ever being diminished at all. It's not diminished, it's not fragmented. It is able to retain its completeness while we are also reflecting it at the same time, like a mirror, like a reflection. And this is monotheistic pantheism, and it combines both concepts into a singular spiritual cosmological framework for its philosophical explanation of the universe and the cosmos. You start with this unknowable, unnamed, unconditioned principle or essence that is without attributes at all. It is, so to speak, non-being, they say it. Or they say it's a no thing, nothing. Because if it's a thing, you've defined it, you've limited it. Now it's no longer omnipotent, it's no longer eternal, it's no longer everything, because now it's a thing. So they use an apophatic terminological delineation method, which means a method for negation, a method of negation. It's supposed to say what something is. You're saying what it's not. And by defining all the things that it's not, you have, in some sense, to the human mind, presented to it, so to speak, kind of a rough, vague image of what it is. Because it is everything and it is nothing at the same time. It is non-being, and yet all being comes from its essence, and is reflected in it. It is, in the esoteric Buddhist and Eastern tradition, it's called Parabrahma or Parabrahman. And it is the absolute. It is the eternal, immutable essence and principle in reality that is the only thing that exists. All else is illusion. All else is Maya. And the only reason that is the case is because it's temporal. It has a fixed time and duration and a form which will eventually deteriorate and thus be gone and be destroyed. Of course, then there's renewal and rebirth continuously. But at the same time, the only thing that is never destroyed and is always eternal is this one condition, this one principle or essence called the eternal absolute, Parabrahman. You know, it's not even the one. The one is what everyone else refers to as God, as Jehovah. Well, it's not actually Jehovah, but as the Lord, the God of all major religions, is the next thing in the cosmology, which is the one, which is a, so to speak, crystallization of this principle into a singular point of itself, which becomes the one. And the one, or the all, is what we refer to as the deity. And in that deity, it is a monotheistic, pantheistic concept. The all and the one is in all and is in everything and is everything. You are it and it is you and everyone else at the same time. And this obviously drastically diverges from any other monotheistic conceptualization of the deity of most religions, because it's either, separate from creation, or it actually, and it's not even, in the esoteric tradition, it's not technically, it's not even called creation. It's called an emanation out of itself. And emanationism is different than creationism. It's a distinct philosophical difference in terms of metaphysics and how the scheme unfolds. And in emanationism, it's like it comes from within itself and is still contained. It emanates from it. It's like a radiance, like a exactly like a radiance from a light. And the further out you go from that light, the more material things become. The closer you are to that light, the more spiritual, the more rarefied, the more you're closer to essence as opposed to form being matter in the material plane. And in this theosophical cosmology, which honestly I've studied other versions, like in the Rosicrucian tradition and the anthroposophical tradition, and some other mystery school traditions that are not theosophical, and they all have the exact same tradition on the terms of cosmology, pretty much. And they might use slightly different terms for the same concept, but it's exactly pretty much identical. And it's all monotheistic pantheism. And there's this, and there, there may be hierarchies, but all is one. And the one and that all comes from an unconditioned, absolute, eternal essence or principle, as they try to call it, an unmanifested being, non-being, at the same time. And you could think of it really, this unconditioned essence, this eternal, absolutely unmanifested principle, as all things in existence existing in a potentiality, a state of total latency and potentiality. All things, anything that could even come to your mind, anything that can even possibly exist, has existed or will exist, all sitting in a state of like cocooned, non-active latency and potential in itself. And it, according to basically, cosmic law, at the appointed time, you know, cosmic manifestation begins and it reawakens. Because there's periods of sleeping and away, and there's periods of activity and inactivity. It's the law of periodicity that periodically it creates or emanates and manifests the universe. And then eventually, trillions of years later, it is always reabsorbed back into the absolute, including the one. And then at an equal length of time, it sits in a latent state, in an inactive state. And then after the same length of time, it re-manifests. It awakens back into cosmic activity and crystallizes the one. And then the one emanates the two and the three, and they form a trinity, essentially. And then the three and one manifests all the different aspects of the cosmos, all the way down to the material plane and the physical human being that we are today. And so the cosmology is, I know it's quite difficult for some people probably, and it was difficult for me obviously in the beginning. And it took some time to really wrap my head around these extremely archetypal and abstract metaphysical concepts that are foreign to a Western religion entirely. I mean, if you're a Buddhist, it might make a little more sense, but it doesn't to a Western Christian or Islamic Sheikh, Islamic, a Sunni Islam, or Shia Islamic individual, or someone in Judaism, or whatever, Mormonism, or any of the others that are over here. It's very abstract and metaphysical, and I understand that. And so I'm trying to break it down the best I can so that it's understandable, with it being so foreign and so abstract. But you think of it as you have a vast ocean, obviously, which is the one. And back of the ocean, you have the absolute. But in the ocean is obviously made up of unnumbered, uncountable drops of water. Yet it all remains one at the same time. It still remains the ocean. Yet at the same time, each drop, so to speak, has its own individuality and expression as part of that whole. That's us. That's humanity. That's the divine monad, the divine spark from the absolute reflected in you that is part of this cosmic ocean of the deity. This vast ocean of, light and spirit that is everywhere in everything, and yet at the same time you are individual. You are individuality, but at the same time the droplet is also part of the ocean. Yet you could pick it out, sort of. I mean, there is a distinction. the The drop of a drop in the ocean. The ocean still remains the ocean, yet you still remain the drop within the ocean. That individual spark of life and divinity that is connected to the whole and still part of it at the same time. That is one of the best metaphors I've seen in some of these books, and it made a lot of sense to me after it was expressed that way. So, when you have monotheistic, a form of monotheistic pantheism, when you have this theosophical cosmology, the one of the biggest distinctions they make is the difference between what they call consciousness and form. Consciousness is like the divine idea, the divine mind of the one, the all, reflected into the individual, but without a form to house that reflected essence, it could have no expression. So thus you have to have a vehicle for expression. You have to have a, so to speak, a material form of whatever type, whether it's an etherical or an astral or a fully materialized physical form. The point is you have to have a vehicle for expression, a form to house this spark of divine consciousness, this divine monad, this, traveler through the various experiences of the universe. It has to have a vehicle. It has to have a vessel to go through that. So that's what the form, the body is for. Now, there's multiple bodies, as I've said. There's different bodies: the astral body, etheric body, physical body, mental body. Doesn't matter. The main point is the concept of you have consciousness. Everything has consciousness in this cosmology. There is not a single grain of sand or speck of atom, atomic particle that is without any form of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Everything has a reflection of this divine consciousness within it, even if it's in a very low state of consciousness. Everything, there's nothing dead in the universe. Everything is alive. Everything is conscious in its own way and in its own form of expression. Adam to God, God to us, and us to the universe. There's nothing dead in nature at all. And so that means plants, animals, and minerals and rocks have consciousness to a small degree. It's not the same level of consciousness that obviously we have. But ours is also not the same level that the higher beings in the universe on the superphysical planes have, nor the supercosmic gods that helped generate this universe. Gods with a little g. They call them the Dayan Chohans in Theosophy. And they're the highest level of spiritual beings in that cosmology. But they don't have any names. That's just the term for them, Dayan Chohans. And there's everything from that down to us and in between. So there are higher spiritual beings than us that were humans in the past, and we will also be angelic beings in the future, very far future from now. But it is a vast evolutionary scheme, spiritual evolutionary scheme of involuting down into matter from a very rarefied spiritual state, gaining all the experiences through all the different levels, hitting peak materiality, and then rising back out of it to be re-spiritualized with all the experience, knowledge, and, so to speak, abilities and development gained through that journey. And that is the explanation of the theosophical scheme. You have the descent of spirit into matter, and then matter re-spiritualizes back all the way up to spirit. And it obviously takes place over an unknown number of years, trillions probably. But at the same time, it is a very highly detailed scheme, an explanation for a lot of different things in the universe that remain a mystery. And it involves, in two of my earlier videos this year, months ago, I tried to explain the monad's journey through the different forms of manifestation and the different vehicles of expression that it goes through until it gets to the human stage, which is the stage that we're at. And I hope I did a good job. I'm not sure. It's very complicated and very foreign, I'm sure, to people, just like it was to me. But it's called the 777 incarnations. And we basically, as a monad, become involved in matter from an extremely rarefied astral etheric state of vehicle, as in a monad in that vehicle, ensouled into the vehicle. And it progressively drops deeper and deeper and deeper into matter, as well as the earth doing that. The earth also was in a non-physical state, so to speak. And we evolved on the earth as the earth evolved. And we went through different vehicles of expression repeatedly, being reincarnated, until you reach the human stage. And at that stage, you have still an even more finely detailed, somewhat explanation of that stage, because it's not one stage, it's multiple stages of the human stage. Previous to that, you had an animal stage, and you had, or phase, you had a plant phase, and you had a mineral phase. And really, you should liken those to not being a mineral or in a mineralized form necessarily. You are in a mineralized state of consciousness, in a plant state of consciousness, in an animal-like state of consciousness, with the appropriate principles out of the seven to go with that, until you become human and you gain the mental body and you gain the human form, which even in the beginning, once that occurs, is still an astral etheric vehicle of expression, and utterly without reason or intellect or mind really at all. It's in a germinal state at that point, but we'll go into that later, because it needs to be done right. It's complicated. So all of this obviously drastically differs from what we're told in any of the mainstream religious versions of the origins of man, or even in Darwinian evolution, which, if you want to say it's not totally wrong, besides the part about us being from monkeys, which is bullshit. At the same time, part of that is correct if you want to start at peak materiality to a degree, where it's finally become totally materialized. We have, and so have our environment, and then evolution that they talk about potentially begins at that point, once the nadir of physicalization begins, which is, in this scheme, basically halfway through the entire cosmic scheme, which is a long time. A whole lot of stuff happens before that. But the main point to remember from this video is that everything is the deity. Everything is one. The one is all, and all is one, and all is within the one. And the all is reflected in you, in your being, in everything about you, in your essence. You are a divine wayfarer, experiencing the experiences that can be gained by the all through your vehicles of expression, and through your experiences, and through your life. And it has meaning, and it has purpose. And there's a reason why we're here, and there's a reason for us to move forward with our spiritual evolution and to gain the experience necessary for that spiritual development that awaits us. Because at this point in human history, on the micro scale, we have absolutely ended peak materiality. We are supposedly, according to the tradition of Theosophy and Anthroposophy and these occult schools, we are now having crested over the full materialism stage, and are supposed to be rising back out of it. Now, it's a long scheme, and we're nowhere near ever fully rising out of it. Not in our generation, that's for sure. For thousands of years, maybe, or more. But the point being that materialism has nothing more to offer, and spirituality does. Now, that's not to say neglected materialism or the material world at all, but to keep it in mind that there is an invisible spiritual world all around us that the material world is simply a reflection of, and that we need both. both in unison. You don't want to have too much spirit. You don't want to have too much matter. You want to combine the two into a fusion of the best of both potentials. And in our day and age, everything is so materialistic and so overrun with scientific dogmatism and digitalization that the spirit is absolutely in a state of tranced shock for most people and practically inert right now. And that's partly by design. But at the same time, it's partly our karmic fate as humanity in the West, basically, because we were designed at this point in the flat past 1,000 years to conquer the physical plane, and we've done that, and we've taken what we can from that experience, and we had to neglect the spiritual side of things to do that. Yet it's had its day, and it's now become as dogmatic as the pre-Reformation Catholic Church was dogmatic, and is abusing its basically its materialistic powers and dogmatizing everybody and ideologically straitjacketed around the consciousness of humanity at this point. And we need a spiritual awakening of humanity right now to reignite the fire of this divine spark and this divine human potential that exists in all of us and in humanity as a collective. It's not to go to the stars. It's not to go world conquer and be space imperialists. That is not the evolutionary mission. That is not our spiritual destiny. Our spiritual destiny is to evolve our being individually and as a whole, as a human race, to see all in all, see everyone as everyone else. We are all just a reflection of the divine on our spark, and we are so divided and so atomized at this point that it is absolutely fundamental to progress as a human species to get beyond this atomization and this dialectical divide and conquer between all the things that supposedly separate us instead of focusing on the things that unite us as as a being, as a human race, distinct, not making distinctions about any race, but the one human race. And it can't be top down either. You can't force it. It has to be through a form of consciousness expansion for the human species. You can't top down force spiritual evolution on anyone. And they never taught that in Theosophy or the sacred mystery school traditions. The point was to guide the human race along this spiritual progression of form and experience and knowledge, never to force it. If someone is forcing it, they're what you refer to as the Brotherhood of the Left Hand Path, dark occultists and dark occult schools who engage in black magic and Satanism and dark occult practices like social engineering, mind manipulation, astral vampiric psychism, and social control, and that this basically signifies the power elite structures and universal oligarchy of the plutocracy in our world today. They are largely dark occultists, and they have a different plan for human evolution, and they have a plan for de-evolution, though they may not see it that way. And so it's fundamental to understand these things because there are things in motion and things in play that I feel in our generation, very likely potentially in my generation, the people that are between 30 and 40 years old, in the next 40 years, it could, I almost feel like it could be decided because of the technologies that are coming out and some of the ideological frameworks being pushed on our consciousness and being pushed into our bodies by these corporations and powerful institutions and powerful individuals that want that. And I'm referring obviously to transhumanists like Elon Musk, like Sam Altman, and a lot of these other elites, like probably like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and this global power elite oligarchy, which is wrapped up deeply in dark occultism and transhumanist ideology. And they want us to merge with machines. They think that's the next step in human evolution. And this is after they've read the Theosophical teachings, by the way. They know what it says. And if you've read it, you know what Blavatsky says, and you know what the Theosophists and the sacred mystery school traditions of the white side of occultism, the white brotherhood of occultism, white magic side, the right hand path, they say that you can't force it. And that merging with more matter, which is what you're doing if you're inserting nanotechnologies in people, is not the way forward. We're supposed to spiritualize our physical body, spiritualize our subtle bodies in our physical framework, our vehicle. What does that mean? Well, that means it's going to become less physical, not more physical, less, because the earth is going to do the same thing while we're on it. It is going, so we're going to be heading towards, so to speak, the next stage, the next plane that is less dense than ours is the etheric plane. We're going to be etherizing, re-spiritualizing our form out of matter. So if we instead become inserted with more matter, specifically lower matter, which is what nanotechnology is made out of, a mineralization stage type matter, and merge ourselves with the mineralization state, well, what are we doing? Well, we're devolving. We're going to be devolving ourselves. De-evolution. That is the de-evolution track. And it's absolutely horrific to see where humanity is heading right now in 2025 when it comes to this agenda of transhumanism and like social engineering and human engineering through digitalization and these smart technologies that are just coming very quickly, coming quickly. They keep talking about the singularity is near. Well, the singularity is the end of humanity. We merge with, even if we just merge with nanotechnology and become cyborgs, that is the end. Much less if we, so to speak, merge with artificial intelligence, whatever that means, because we can't create consciousness. We can't bestow it on anything. That's not how the scheme works in the universe. Consciousness is bestowed on things by higher beings that are of a spiritualized nature, that are angelic, that it's a fragment of the divine consciousness that is our consciousness. So how are you going to get that? How are you going to offer that to a machine? You can't offer it to a machine. So we'd be giving ours away, so to speak. There's no way to make it conscious. Can it be conscious? No, it cannot be conscious. Now, there's a whole other side to that that I will not go into tonight that has to do with another side to this AI story and this transhumanist story that is best left for another podcast. But it absolutely is the central nodal point of the transhumanist ideology and where it comes from. And it has to do with beings that are not physical. But I don't want to go into that tonight. The main point being that this world conception, this universal cosmology of occultism, is absolutely fundamental to understanding how we really relate to the universe and relate to the divine, because we are the divine and the divine is reflected in us. And there's nothing dead in the universe. The universe is not just made of matter with vast empty space in between the different pieces of matter that have been aggregated into planets. Everything is alive. There's nothing dead in the universe. There's nothing unconscious without any consciousness in the universe. Everything is imbued with life, consciousness, and purpose. Everything. And so I want to end it on that note because that's a high note. And just always remember that no matter what society tells you, you are a reflection of the divine in a human vehicle of expression, in a human form. You are not anything less at all. You're not anything less. You are the divine reflected. and that's I think that's extremely beautiful. And why the teaching is, so resonates with me is that just makes sense to me, that this the whole scheme of the reflecting of essences and the reflecting of archetypes into forms is, it just seems very logical to me, and not only that, extremely philosophical as well, and just kind of makes sense, and it's a better conceptualization of the universe. It's more enlightening. It's more able to offer you a level of growth and development towards something than scientific materialism, than careerism and the Western world mindset.